basically, I got a property under contract. The seller, I thought he was going to cancel the contract because I told him, hey, we got to get tenants out before closing. And so he was like mad about that, saying, hey, you told me I didn't have to worry about the tenant X, Y, and Z. But I told him that because he wasn't giving me enough information about the tenant until we went to the property and saw how damaged the property was. They wasn't paying rent the past month. So I'm trying to figure out now. I'm guessing he talked to other wholesalers and they couldn't give him the price that I had. So now he's like, hey, I'm gonna put a 3-day eviction on the property. My thing is, should I go to the property? This was on Wednesday when he put a 3-day eviction.
So he put it on, right?
Right.
So he's agreed to carry through on the eviction.
That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah. So here's my question to you: is I've always told you guys, your sellers, they always listen much more to what you say than whatever you put on a contract. Mm-hmm. And I will go to tell you that 9 times out of 10, they expect you to honor whatever verbally you've done. You always have to do written paperwork, and sometimes like negotiations go and like they get mixed up on it. And I've been in this thing like forever. So here's what I can tell you: whatever you told them to do, that's what they're going to expect you to do. And you have to be honest with yourself. I've made mistakes too. I've said like, hey, I'll take it with the tenant, and then I find out other stuff. I'm like, well, now I'm not going to take it with the tenant. And what they do is they substitute your verbal contract with your new written contract. And at some point, you have to have like a coming to Jesus meeting and sit down and go, okay, listen, guys, you know how I feel. Some of the best properties I buy are problem tenant because they drive people nuts. You just can't let them. You can't take on that problem too. So if you're getting a smoking deal, like 50 cents on the dollar, I understand you're probably going to have to take on that tenant and deal with it. Now, you can ask the landlord for help because you can't file an eviction or do anything because you're not the legal owner of the property. The contract doesn't give you a right to evict. Sometimes they want to cooperate, sometimes they don't. The reality is evictions cost money, they cost time, and when you have a difficult tenant, so you have to decide what decision you made and you want to stick to it and kind of honor it. The problem is all motivated sellers is hear what you're going to do, and when it changes, they try to hold you to the original conversation, even though they didn't give you the material facts, either on the tenant or the condition of the property. And this is where it gets sticky. When it gets muddled down, sometimes you just got to go meet with the seller and go, okay, I think we have a little bit of a misunderstanding. And just because if you wait till like the day of closing, it's a nightmare. That's like realtor land, and I don't live there. So what's the problem with the tenants?
So the tenants haven't been paying the past 3 months. They just destroyed the property. So I told him if he wants the number he wants, like I can keep the tenants in there, but we're gonna have to drop at least $5-6 grand. Yeah. But he didn't want to do that, and I guess this is why I feel like he felt like he's gonna stick it out with me. I told him I got the agreement to the 28th, and secondly, he blocked me. Like, I couldn't call him. I mean, I could. It was going through. He got mad at me.
That's not a good sign.
Right. So I guess he was looking around and see someone, because he always said somebody else was offering him more. I'm like, I don't think they fully understand what is going on with your situation. So I'm guessing he called me that the next day because he shopped around and realized, hey, I'm not gonna get what I thought I was gonna get for this property. So my thing is, how do I play it? Do I do cash for keys now, or do I wait till next week to go there?
So have you talked to the tenants?
We've been there, like we did the whole run through with the buyer. So they already know. We've been there a couple times. Well, this is a virtual.
Do you have a buyer set up for the property?
I have two right now that want it vacant, and the deal will work.
I got it. So I mean, it's not. So do you still have communication back open with your seller? Mm-hmm. So I will tell you this: you have to go and befriend the tenant. You have to be like, I'm on your side. Mm-hmm. So the easiest way to do is you don't technically own the property, so you can kind of go in and just. Sometimes we just go up there. You got to understand that there's always two sides to a story, right? Okay. A lot of these landlords, I'm just going to tell you guys, they're cheap. They don't take care of their property, and they're not nice to their tenants. Mm-hmm. So I've heard every horror story in the world. So you have to go in with an open mind, because in the end, you already have the seller kind of locked down. Now you got to lock down the tenants. So you have to go in and underwrite, what do I need to do to get this tenant problem fixed? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you can just throw money at it, fix it. But the tenants, 9 times out of 10, they just feel disrespected, because landlords are like, I'm the landlord, right? And you have to go in and just like a simple guy going in, having like a beer with a buddy, just having a drink to like let them unload their steam. So go in, let them unload the steam. Number 2, they'll tell you a lot about the house. They're going to give you more dirt on your landlord that you probably don't want to hear about, but you have to go in and just, all I'm saying is like, so what are you guys going to do? So if you can use your rapport building skills and let them tell you what the plan is, but they're going to tell you subconsciously what they're going to do anyways. They're like, well, if they start going, I don't know, we haven't figured out anything, you have to assess the risk of like getting these people out. If they go, yeah, and if we just had a few bucks to get out of here. And here's how I always go like this. don't ever commit. Go, what if? I'm just saying, what if I could convince John, the landlord, if you could get out by this date, I'll make sure there's no eviction so it doesn't affect your credit. There'll be no judgments against you. And maybe I can get you some money if you help make the property clean sweep to the door. Is that something? Or is that just like, should we just give the money to the lawyer? So here's a little trick I always tell tenant. I can either have so you can't be the bad guy. You're the good cop. You always have to be the good cop. Otherwise you're screwed. Because if they trash that property, it's going to screw your deal up. So you have to win them all the way to the end. Go in and be the good cop, have the landlord be the bad cop, and just play it. And just assess it. Sometimes people go in and go, I'm not getting out of here even if you put a crowbar or you throw dynamite in this place.
He knows.
So if it's that, then you have to have him do the eviction because it's going to be expensive. It's going to cost a little time. But if you have to extend the contract, remember, part of your contract is he has to deliver that property free and clear title, depending what contract you did. Like, so on that type of contract, I would probably initially write seller to deliver property vacant, which means he's responsible for doing the tenant. If he doesn't do it and say the expiration goes by, that contract doesn't expire. He has to fulfill his end.
Right.
Because he's kind of clouded the title by doing this. But I still want to try to hold his hands and do what I can. And then when you talk to the landlord, you go, oh my God, I met with your tenants. What a nightmare. I can see why they drive you nuts. He's like, yeah, you see what I'm doing? I go, well, and then if you can use the tenant to help. So you guys, the 3-day notice sucks up like 5 days. So is this in the state of Florida? Ohio. So I don't really know the rules over there. So you have to know what's like in California, New York, it's a nightmare evicting people. Florida, piece of cake. Like Florida, 22 days it's done. So, and by the way, your tenants usually know this. And if they're behind 3 months, usually when he files an eviction, like in the state of Florida, you have to take that 3 months rent and put it in escrow just to even fight your case. You can't just show up and say, hey, I'm screwed on it. So I would meet with them and play good cop, bad cop. And based on that intel is going to decide which step you move forward with. So one of the two ways, if you have to move on the full eviction, you do have to talk to a lawyer because transferring the rights of an eviction when the property gets sold is messy. Because you're going to have to legally start the process all over. If the guy will give you a big enough discount, you can just hand that mess off to your seller and give them a little bit of a discount and make it work. Or you can deliver it on the condition of the property is going to be vacant. Just be careful that it doesn't go on forever and make sure he's using a lawyer to do the eviction.
So Brandon, you said transferring after the eviction is messy?
After a transfer of property. Because so if he started the eviction and say you sell it to your cash buyer and they have to fulfill the eviction, you could have a battle because if the seller fights it with a lawyer, they're going to find out it transferred and you technically have to start all over. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just telling you, just double check. So like, talk to your title company in that state,
right?
And ask them, go, listen, how does it work if he starts the eviction the 3-day notice and I get it sold? And just kind of know. And if you can do it, I'm sure there's a technique you can, then it would save your cash buyer a ton of time and money. Right. Because the 3-day, let's face it, guys, it winds up being 5 to 6 days.
Right.
And then you have to file, you got to file the law. It's basically a lawsuit. And then they have 20 days to respond. And if they don't respond, so the idea is to get all that crap out of the way as much as possible. So when it comes close to your guy, he can take it over. You can do a cash for keys within $500. It's a much safer play, but they've got to cooperate and get the hell out of there.
Do you get the money after they out, or do you give a half before, or how do you do it?
If they're extremely difficult, figure a way to fund them and get them out of there, because you'll never get them out of there. And honestly, if you have to float $500, whatever amount you give them between that and like 5 or 10 days closing, at least it guarantees your deal. If you're going to wait till it funds and does the closing, like they could get, you don't want them to wait till the last minute. And here's the deal. Whenever you do like a cash for keys, it's an emotional decision. They either take it or they don't. Like, so if they do it and they feel like you're playing games with them, they will literally destroy the house. You do not play with cash for keys, people. They do not play. Because keep in mind, when they're sweeping out that door, they unload everything and they scrub the sink and the tub. That's all the money they're walking out. Like a lot of them, they don't have any money. So like I know 500 doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're broke, it's everything. So whenever we've done that, we get a lot. Like, and then you get people, well, that's fine. Screw that. I'm just going to squat here and I'm never leaving. It's like, oh. Wow. So if you get an agreement, and honestly, it usually takes them a week. Maybe you float it a week or two, or maybe your cash buyer would even help you out with that. Okay. But figure it out. So guys, tenants you have to assess your options. My favorite play is to buy the house with a bad bad tenants for a deep discount, and then I leave enough in there if I have to throw in a lawyer, but I know it's going to cost me time. It just works because I can be in control of everything. The other way with the cash for keys is great, but it's like a 50-50 shot, and then you're kind of do it the third way where they evict it. You just got to make sure you keep your contract and you stay in check with the seller, because a lot of them get frustrated with eviction. So I don't know how it works in Ohio, so you got to work out.
Yeah,
I would talk to a title company or a lawyer to make sure you're covered on it. And then if it transfers, I would get that answer. Now you have options. You have 4 different options there, and you can explore which one you need to do. Unfortunately, like every deal, it's like quarterbacking every time in wholesaling. It's like we are here to solve problems, and tenants are a huge part of it. When I hear the tenant hasn't paid 3 or 4 months, I know I'm getting a really good deal.
Okay.
I recently took one on where the tenant hasn't paid 3 years. 3 years. The guy goes, and you know what he said? He's like, he goes, I don't know, give me $3,000 and we'll call it a day. And so we did a creative financing deal to the whole thing. Now I had to put a roof on it and do some other stuff, but he was so tired and beaten. And we use the word capitulation. It's when someone just gives up. That is the epitome of a tired landlord. And what happens is people get into real estate and they go, oh, listen, you just buy a right? You hear the story. Just buy a property. You can buy it for like 150 grand and you come back 5 years and it's worth double the amount of money. And here's the cool part. The tenant pays for everything. So other than your initial funding, you don't have to do anything.
Right.
It's the biggest lie in our business.
Right.
Most people are not equipped to buy real estate. It is not like a stock. You have emotions, you have people, you have all sorts of laws. You got to get insurance. It's a nightmare. And when people buy 3 to 5 properties, that's why you and me are always going to be in business. They're my number one customer, the failed landlord. And when they give up, if you catch them right, man, they give up big. They're like, Rick, I'm done. And by the way, I gave up once. I owned 26 houses that got hit by 2 hurricanes, lost insurance on all of them, and had a record property tax increase. And then I had the entire market drop out like a year and a half after that. So I went through the whole gamut. I sold so many properties. I was like, I was done. I showed up to a property once. I found that there's 15 people living in a 2-1. Because you know why? Because I'm a really bad landlord. So now I don't do any type of landlording. I have a company that handles it because guys, if you're too nice, just be very careful. And my recommendation, anyone's going to own a rental property, make sure it's within 50 miles of your home base, because past 50 miles, you're not going to check on it. Sorry. Ask me how I know this. I got properties all over the country. I don't do them without partners anymore. Period.
One more before I get off.
Yes.
I got another lead, or I don't know how this works. So I was driving for Dallas. I got a hurricane damaged property. Sticky note on the door. The guy called me. Long story short, we got a number that would work for them and that'll work for me. But the thing is, going through probate, and I couldn't remember what you said to tell them. So I told them, hey, check with the lawyer. But what I told them is, check with the lawyer, but you can't sell a property before the probate's over.
Is this in Ohio?
No, this is in Florida.
Yeah. So tell me what they want to do, and then I'll give you my spiel on it. What does this seller want to do?
They trust the lawyer and they want to go through the full probate before they sell it. And I said, it's because it's a hurricane damaged property. You don't want that property just to sit there for that long. It's not going to be worth what you think it is in 6 months or so. So
is it? I assume it's on the west coast of Florida.
It's Volusia County.
So here's the challenge you have. So I assume the property is vacant, or are they living in it?
Vacant. Property's horrible. Well, it's not bad, but it's not living.
And how long ago did the person pass away?
I think I want to say a couple months ago, or I think that's what he told, or a year ago. It was one of those two. I can't remember.
So let me walk you through this. So I assume their lawyer gave them instructions that they can't sell the property till the probate's done, correct?
Right.
No. Guys, this is the standard line from every probate attorney across the country. Now, in a few instances, it is correct. There's very few, though. Very few. Very specialized states. I'm not going to get into it because there's over 3,500 counties and complicated. So I know for a fact in the state of Florida, it's a 100% lie. It's a flat out lie. You know why? It's about control. So don't you enjoy when you control something? Like, let's face it, when you contact the seller direct, there's no agent, there's no middleman. You use your title company and you know your cash buyer. You're in 100% control, right?
Yep.
That's what the lawyer's doing. That's all he's doing. He's just using a technique called control. The longer I control it, the more powerful I feel, the more value they believe they provide to their client, because they believe a lawyer's job is what? To protect people, right?
Right.
Protect you from the bad people other than themselves. And then the longer it goes, the more value and the more power, the more they can charge. Now, there is a cap on what they can charge on probate, but it's for, like, I've seen probates go $13,000 that shouldn't have been more than $2,000. I see them all the time. So in the state of Florida, they've built contingencies in there, knowing that. So how much is the house? What's the value on the house roughly?
Around $365.
And what do you think what do you think the contract price you need to be at?
I got them at like 175, 180.
So listen, it's not usually a home is someone's biggest asset. So the reality is we're in a market where it's not going up, it's going down, and the cost of money is horrible. So the reality is the longer they own this home, probably for the next year, in my opinion, the less it's going to be worth. And let me ask you, does the insurance bill stop? No. Does the tax bill stop? No. You still have to run some basic utilities, and you still have to, even though if it got trashed by a hurricane, there's still some basic maintenance on the property, because eventually you still have to mow the grass in Florida or it gets way out of control in the summertime. So the reality is the longer she owns that, the more stress it's going to cause her and the less money the estate's going to get. So if he or she is the PR, the personal representative, or the executor, they have the legal right to enter into a sales agreement for that property because they are representing, and they can sign a contract with you. If you can get them to sign a contract without dealing with the stupid probate lawyer, you're in control. If the contract has to be cleared by the lawyer is going to present obstacles to you. Why? Control. I have power and I am the value provider. They're going to recommend a BPO, which is a broker's price opinion, or they're going to order an appraisal. Now, guys, you only need appraisals on end user properties that are going on the MLS.
Right.
The reason they order the appraisal is to stop you and make sure you don't get a deep discount. And number two, they're going to charge between $500 and $700 for the appraisal, because guess who gets a piece of the appraisal? They do. So then they're going to tell them then they'll tell them you need to use insurance mitigator or whatever, and then they're going to tell them you need to list it with this realtor. And unless you can beeline and sneak past that lawyer, you're going to get stuck. So if you can meet with your seller and say, listen, I get it. You leverage them. Go, listen, it's not going to be worth more. It's going to be a pain in the butt. And honestly, it's vacant. Let's move on. I can get you cash out. I can make it work. You can even possibly help them out with their insurance claim. Do not overpromise that. And you can sell the house for as is right now. But if you agree to it, if a buyer and seller agree to it, that's it. The lawyer's job is just to file the paperwork.
Okay.
But they try to go, I'm going to tell you what it's worth. They are not a real estate expert. You are. Okay. And so if you can do it, they're going to go, well, I feel, here's what I get it. I feel dirty going around my lawyer. I'm like, well, here's what I always say to you. And here's the key line is, it is your decision. It is your money. And if we enter an agreement, you know this thing's put to bed. Once they sign that contract, you are 100% in control. There's nothing the lawyer can do to get rid of you then. If you have to go through the lawyer, it's a nightmare. And here's what's going to happen. Submit your contract, and then they're going to review it. Earnest money deposit, $100. Are you kidding me? $5,000. Oh, the contract can't be assignable. And they start this big game, and you'll never get through it. So you have to sweet talk them. I'm not telling people that they can't legally review. And I tell you, if it just comes down to reviewing the contract. So here's another trick. You take the seller's name. What's the seller's name? Ruby. Say Ruby. So if I get you right, get them to agree on the price. Are you okay on the price? Yes. Go over it again. Are you okay on the price? So if you're okay on the price and you would like to close quickly as possible, then what is it you want the attorney to review? Well, I'd feel more comfortable if they review the contract. That's fine. So if he reviews the contract and they say it's good to go, we're good on the price, right? Yes. If you anchor with that, because the attorney's going to go back, that price is ridiculous. And she's going to, no, I agreed to that with him. I told him the price isn't an issue. I just want to make sure the contract's legit. You're still going to get bullshit that comes back on it. Sorry. Like they're just going to go, well, you got to change this verb. Right. You got to change to this. You're okay with that. You'll play that game a little bit. They're going to screw with you on the deposit. But worst case scenario, if you have to do that, anchor her on the price and you being the buyer and just say, listen, if this contract works and reviews it, that's fine. The minute he starts telling you what you need to pay for it, you got to go back to her. I go, I thought we already agreed on the price. It's her decision in the end, right? And then once they do that, you enter in a contract, you give it to your title company, and then your title company will basically give instructions. And you just say to your title company, what motion does the lawyer need to file to liquidate this asset? And here's what happened. A check gets made out to the estate of John Doe. The probate's still open, and then they wrap it up. But they have this, if she gets $100,000 proceeds, she's not paying any more bills on this house. Okay. The value of it's not going down, and you just figured out her biggest problem. It's a huge win-win. She can still continue on the insurance claim and stuff like that, and that's it. But anchor her on the price, because that's what the lawyer's going to come back and go, like, this price doesn't work right. We're going to have to get an appraisal. Okay. But listen, an appraisal's for people that fix up houses and get bank loans. I'm just buying it cash from you. You're okay with it. The house is vacant. You want to move on with your life. What is it you need him to review? And normally they'll go, I just want him to look over the contract. If he just wants to review the contract, I'm okay with that. You still got a bit of a risk with that, but that's why you've got to understand, like, you think a lawyer would always tell you the truth, but I'm here to tell you they manipulate the word.
But that's my thing. I'm like, they're like, oh, it's a family friend. I was like, he's still a lawyer at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's it. So anchor her on the price. So when he tries to flip on the the price. She's like, no. Me and Vince already agreed on the price. That's the easy part. And then a lot of times the lawyer will start to let go. Like, okay, whatever. She knows. You'd be surprised. I've had people want to do a contract with me, and the lawyer convinces them that's a bad deal, it's a bad price. Even when they agreed on it, he goes, I can get you a better one. I've actually had multiple lawyers backdoor me and buy a probate. That's how disgusting it is. But there's some ethical lawyers out there. But if you can slip past that, look at the lawyer in probate as the goalie in hockey. Like, he's just going to try to stop everything. So you just got to show up. And here's the good news is most lawyers need 5 to 10 business days to review anything. Right. And that's going to drive you nuts too. Okay. It's ridiculous. Your job is to get it through probate, not decide who buys it and at what price they buy it. To me, it's unethical. But get past, if you could sneak past that lawyer, man, I'm just telling you, it's and the lawyer and so by the way, if you call the lawyer up front, they'll never take your call, which you never need to deal with them. But the minute you get on a contract, you'll get an instant call from the lawyer. I'm like, how did you do that? Like, no, she wants to sell the property. Let's get this thing going.
And my last thing is, maybe you could talk, because you've been in this for so long, is you deal with buyers because that deal in Ohio, I had a buyer, but he backed out, and he's like this big wig in the city, but never could just say I'm not interested in it. That's all I wanted to hear was, you're not interested, that's okay. But he contacted me and saying, oh, well, he's on vacation, I'm sorry, I couldn't X, Y, and Z or whatever. And so my thing is, these buyers that's like just ghost you or just don't say, hey, they want to do this, or they go in and then they ghost you. It's like, how do they come back when you get more deals? You know what I'm saying?
I spaced out. I did a little ADHD for full disclosure. Sum that up again.
So no, I'm just saying, basically I have like a lot of buyers in Ohio, but it was one out I was going to go into contract with. He didn't put the EMD in, ghost on the property, and he never put the EMD in. Then he called and he texted me like a week later, oh, I'm sorry, I was on vacation, surprise vacation, whatever. Yeah. But my thing was, why you just want to tell me you're not interested in the property? They never tell you I'm not interested.
Just get them off your list, because they'll do it. Here's the one thing. Humans are creatures of habits. When they screw with you once, they'll just keep doing it over and over. Dude, I have this one particular buyer in my market. I'm not going to say it's a he or she, but they're probably watching this. They drove me nuts for 5 years. I put up with crap. 5 years. Same thing, like over and over. Honestly, I changed my entire assignment agreement to protect myself against these types of idiots. Just always straight. Here's what it is. Somebody taught this skill set. String someone along and make them option their time and like commit, but like you're not going to be committed on your side. Get rid of those people like the plague, because it extends in all phases of their life and it's torture. The same guy that will stand you up at the dock when you go fishing. It's the same guy when you ask, can you pick up my wife? She broke down the car. He got busy or she got busy with someone else. It is a character defect. And it takes a lot of writing. I'm just telling you, it's a lie. Oh, I had a last minute vacation. What, your cell phone didn't work? I went to Mexico and my phone worked the entire 10 days I was there. Well, it's just a lie. So when people chronically lie to you, get them out of your life as fast as humanly possible. For the longest time, I tried to believe the best of everybody, and I just come to the point, if they're going to lie to me like this and screw around with my business, God only knows what they're going to do to me on a personal level. Get rid of them. I'm telling you, man. They say they'll only do it once. That's it. Now, I give motivated sellers the benefit of the doubt because we have to for the business, but when it comes to cash buyers, every story in the world.
Okay, so it's a typical thing.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunately, you got to vet them. And when you do that, go, listen, I'm sorry, you're not reliable enough. I can't keep you on my list. And that's what I tell them. I go, you can't lie to me, dude. I'm not your wife. Like, so person's probably watching it. Like this person, and by the way, I did my homework, find out this person they do it to all wholesalers. They even do it to realtors. They're so bad that title companies don't even want to take their business anymore. So if they're doing it with you, they're going to do it with everybody. So get rid of them as fast as possible.